Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Igniting Young Minds, Crafting Creative Thinkers, a course focused on developing all important critical thinking skills in early learners. So, today we are going to talk about decision making. And this it may be one of the most important skills that we ever develop in the classrooms. It's often the skill that we actually practice the least. As teachers, we have so much going on and we need to get through curriculum and we want our students to learn all that we have prepared for them. And so sometimes decision making for the kids doesn't get practiced because we have to be pushing things forward and constantly making the decisions for the kids so that it's faster. So I want us to really dig deep into this topic and think about how decision making can benefit and actually push the content learning forward rather than holding you back. So if you could just keep that in mind as we go through so that we can get a mind shift and really think what is best for our children. So decision making then is the process of considering information and then choosing an action. So, out of all of these actions that I could choose, I use all of the information that I've accumulated, that I've gathered over time to choose which action I want to move forward with. It's not just choosing, though, it's thinking toward action. Let me say that again. Decision making isn't just choosing, it's thinking toward action. So if I hand you a bag of candy and I say, oh, choose one, then you just look at it and you choose one and it's all candy and maybe you think about the color or the flavor or something like that. But generally you just take and you're like, oh, thank you for the candy. So choosing is more about just like picking from a group of things that has already been provided for you. But decision making is more based on all the thought processes and all the gathering of the information that we have with regard to the context of the decision so that we can make a proper decision about the next activity or the project or whatever we're making a decision about. So, I mean, we are faced with decisions all day long, every day. Um, what we're going to wear, what we're going to eat. We have to decide so many things. And so a lot of these decisions that we make are actually made ahead of time in forms of habits. So if we are doing something habitually, we are not choosing in the moment. And so that's why we talked about being mindful in when we talked about open-mindedness and self-regulation and observation. I think in all of those areas, we focused on just being mindful, and that's what kind of decision making we want in the classroom. Because if you're not mindful, then you won't grow. So when I'm talking about decision making in the classroom, I'm not talking about the habitual decisions that we make, like in the morning, am I going to decide to take a shower or decide to brush my teeth or decide to get dressed? I don't have to decide those things. They're automatic. I'm just going to do them because I do them every day. So, as we develop this skill, especially with our primary learners, they need practice. Every skill needs practice. You can't learn to play the piano if you don't practice. You can't learn any sport without practicing the skills that are needed to play the sport. So, Also, decision making needs practice. So if children never get to practice the small decisions, they will struggle with the larger ones later. So classrooms should be a safe place for children to make mistakes, to decide and then feel the consequences, where the consequences are not great, where the consequences are not harmful, but they're felt. And when children start making these decisions and they find out, oh, that wasn't a great decision, then they will learn to think through their decisions in a more appropriate way, and they will start thinking of the consequences of their decisions and therefore become stronger decision makers. And as like I talked about before, we often make decisions in our classrooms because of a lack of time, because of a lack of pressure. You feel like, oh, it's too stressful to let the kids make the decisions. It's too complicated. If I just tell them, okay, we're doing this, then it's done and we can get on with the activity. But I would like to challenge that way of thinking to say that decision making is part of the thinking process that needs to be practiced. And if you as a teacher are not allowing your students to make those decisions, then you are not allowing them to grow in this important aspect of critical thinking. As an example, you are in a classroom of 6 and 7 year olds, and you have some extra time, and you say, let's go outside and play duck, duck, goose. So, this is a perfectly acceptable way of teaching, and we often do it. It's just like, oh, yeah, let's go play this game that we know and we want to have the kids participate in, and it's going to be fun, and you can add some learning aspect to it. But what if you'd said, hey, we have some extra time. What do you want to do? And you put it to the children to say, what do you want to do? And then student one puts up their hand, I want to play duck, duck, goose. And student two puts up their hand, I want to play football. And student three puts up their hand and says something else. And so then you go through, oh, so what would be the benefit of playing duck, duck, goose? And what would be the benefit of playing football? And then you ask the students to think about all the different necessary information that is useful for making the decision. So for football, oh, do we have a ball? Oh, we don't have a ball. So actually, football is out. And whatever other games, like you think, what is needed? Do we have enough time? Is everybody going to participate? And so you allow the students to talk through what is the best game to play. And then in the end, they say, oh, we want to vote. And so you have 3 games and then they get to vote. And so then the class decides and you go outside and play duck, duck, goose. So the situation is the same. You have the teacher saying, we got some time, let's go play duck, duck, goose. You have some teacher who says, hey, we have some time, what do you want to do? And then after this process of thinking through what is going to be the best, they go outside and eventually play duck, duck, goose. You see how the ending is the same, but the difference is in the process used to get to that ending. So when we are using our time to help children learn to think, we need to provide the opportunities for them to think. Scenario one teaches compliance. Oh, the teacher said we're going outside to play duck, duck, goose. I guess we're going to play duck, duck, goose. Scenario two teaches thinking. It teaches empowerment. It teaches the kids that they have a voice and that they can decide. And then when they go outside to play duck, duck, goose, they know that they decided to do it. And it's something that they can be more engaged in and not something that was just forced upon them. When we control outcomes by controlling behavior, we reduce learning. Let me say that again. When we control outcomes by controlling behavior, we reduce learning. So when we look back at all of the thinking skills, the critical thinking skills that we've gone over. We started with open mindedness and self regulation, and then we went to observation, analysis, interpretation, and inference and logic. So, all of this, as you go through those different skills, we end up with the skill of decision making. It follows through. Without the previous skills, the decision making will be much weaker. Decision making is where all of these skills meet. The better students are at thinking, the better their decision. Children need low risk environments, freedom to fail, and space to see consequences. So, another example is you see you have a plant in your class that the whole class is looking after, and you see one of the children go up to the plant and they pulled a leaf off. Your automatic reaction as a teacher is like, hey, stop that, don't pull the leaf off. But if you want to help the student to think through and make a decision in the future to not pull that leaf off the plant, you can go to the child and say, oh, so what were you thinking when you pulled that leaf off the plant? How do you think that is going to help the plant to grow? What can we do to help plants in a better way? What ways can we take care of things in our classroom so that we have them for a long time? So if you ask them many questions, then they can start thinking of the information that is needed to make better decisions in the future. Because when we tell students, don't do that, they don't know why. They don't know why you're saying don't do that. And then you're just like, everybody knows don't pull the leaves off the plant. Clearly, that child didn't know don't pull the leaves off the plant. And you can know who your children are and why they're doing. Sometimes they're doing things for attention. Um, but when we see that, and if a child is doing something for attention, then we should give them attention, but not negative attention, positive attention that builds connection, that helps them to learn and grow, feel safe, that even though they made a mistake, that it's okay and that they can learn from it. So asking more questions will help students be better decision makers. And it also makes the classroom the safest place to practice failing. Decision making skill depends also on confidence. When you have indecision, you know that knowledge is weak, confidence is low, and the fear of being wrong is high. So when you look at your students and you see that they have weak knowledge and that they're not confident and they don't participate in class because they're always afraid of getting the wrong answer, you can know that you are building indecision. But confidence grows when students see that even imperfect decisions can lead to learning. We can empower our students by giving them the knowledge and the ability to make the wrong decision in our safe classroom environment. It's so important that we allow the children to make mistakes and to feel safe saying, oh, I messed that up. I should have done blah, blah, blah because of blah, blah, blah. The information that they have gathered will help them to make the the decision better next time. When we shame students and punish students, they are less likely to think through what went wrong. They are more likely to not answer in the future because being wrong doesn't lead to positive reinforcement. So we need to really watch our students and help them to build in their confidence, in their knowledge development, in their um, confidence, and building a safe place, making them feel safe and secure in your classroom environment. So, some more examples of how we can promote decision making in our classrooms is letting the students choose where they want to work, letting the students choose whether they stand up or sit down while they're working. And some of you are thinking like, whoa, classroom management issues will abound. And that is possibly true. But when you give students the chance to decide, okay, I'm going to stand up over here, you can give them a consequence. If you're distracting to somebody, if you're causing too many problems in the classroom, then I am going to ask you to sit down for the benefit of all of the learners. But if you know a student is able to stand or to move around without distracting other students, then you should allow that student to make that decision for him or herself. You can allow students to decide how to gather their information. You can use a lot of why questions in your as you're presenting lessons, and discuss cause and effect through stories. Stories are such an excellent way to teach decision making because you present scenarios of other people making wrong decisions and see the consequences. And as you talk about those consequences, kids learn from other people's mistakes, even if those people are not real and they're just characters in stories. So, reading aloud in class and talking about the characters and what kind of decisions they're making will also help your students to understand the process of decision making. So, as we close, I would love to just leave you with some reflective questions. I would love for you to think about how your students are making real decisions in your classrooms, how you actually walk them through that thinking process. Are you more commanding, or are you allowing your students the room to make their decisions? Are you building autonomy, or are you making them dependent on you? So, just some questions to really think about, journal about, and make some decisions this week on how you are going to build decision making in your class to build your students' critical thinking skills. Decision making gives children power over their learning and over their lives. If we want autonomous, confident thinkers, we must let them practice. Today, we went over decision making. Next, we will talk about problem solving and how decision making leads to problem solving. Throughout this framework, I hope you are beginning to see how each skill builds on the previous skill to really develop what is necessary for 21st century learning and for the futures of these students. Thank you so much for joining today. I really appreciate all of the comments that I've been getting. And if you have any questions or if you are interested in going into this more in depth, I am building out a full in depth course that you can take online with me to learn all of the skills and how to really practice putting them into your classroom to build and enhance your teaching practice. So please reach out to me. Um, Continue to follow along and let me know if there's any questions or more things that you would love to learn about to build your 21st century learning environment. Thanks again. Have a great week. Bye.